The story kicks off with Lloyd, a broke kid who gets kicked out of his adventurer group like yesterday's leftovers, but before that mess, things had already been heating up way back. Lloyd was a broke orphan boy who used to live in a tiny beat-up house with his magic teacher Merlin, who basically ran the place like a military camp. Long before he ever got near adventuring, she was drilling him with magic training every single day. No excuses, no mercy. His lessons started with the basics, but Merlin didn't do gentle. One evening, she lit a flame in her hand and told him to do the same, or forget about dinner. After sweating it out for what felt like forever, he finally got a small flame going. She gave him the most half-hearted praise ever, then immediately flexed by blowing up the entire yard with a giant fire blast, just to remind him how far behind he still was. From there, things only got wilder. She broke the ground to teach him earth magic, flooded the place to show water spells, and blasted him halfway across the yard with wind magic like he weighed nothing. Winter didn't slow her down either. Lloyd made a cute little snowman that looked like her, proud of his work, but she laughed, made it gigantic, and dropped him from the sky like he was a snowball. Still, the kid kept grinding. One day, she was hungover, face in the mud, and Lloyd used a healing spell on her. It actually worked. She admitted he wasn't bad, gave him a hug that lasted all of 2 seconds, then told him to stop slacking and get back to it. One night, she opened a locked box and pulled out a weird book that glowed like trouble. When Lloyd brought her dinner, she dropped it, and the moment he touched the book, some crazy magical feedback smacked him right in the chest. That's when Merlin started thinking this scrawny kid might actually be something rare. Still, she told herself not to let him get a big head just yet. The next day, she gave him a rundown on white mages, people who use magic to help, not hurt. He tested his healing skills on a busted piece of fruit. She, of course, had to outdo him by bringing an entire dead tree back to life. Then she started explaining magistones, which were basically crystals stuffed with mana that could turn more things into crystals if used right. Basically magical chain reactions waiting to happen. Then came the survival arc. She blindfolded him, dragged him into the woods, handed him a knife, and said, "Survive for a week, alone. Just magic and instincts. Not even an apple for the road." Barely a day in, a giant wolf shows up, and Lloyd nopes his way up a tree. He knows he's not built for fighting yet, so he focuses on not dying instead. The week was rough. He ate fruit he wasn't even sure was edible, crashed in a cave that probably had bats, and practiced magic when he wasn't freezing. He got good at sensing danger and started drawing magic circles to boost his speed. When a giant spider went after him, he used the speed spell to barely escape. After 7 miserable days, he finally made it back and collapsed on the doorstep. Merlin found him, dragged him inside, and gave him a look that meant, "Not bad," even if she didn't say it out loud. Sometime later, while scrubbing floors, Lloyd found a book with a city on the cover. Looked cool, felt like something important. Merlin caught him staring at it and told him to get back to work. After that, she randomly started throwing new training his way, like forcing him to drink a sketchy potion that kept him awake for a week so he could train non-stop. The woman was unhinged. Eventually, Lloyd finished the book and got way too curious about that city. So one morning, he dipped, just left. Merlin woke up, saw the book on the table, and instantly knew where he'd gone. He made it through the forest and reached the city for the first time in his life. The place was noisy, packed, and overwhelming, but it lit something in him. With 1 coin in his pocket, he bought a piece of bread. But right before he could take a bite, a flyer smacked him in the face. It was for adventurer recruitment. Not long after settling into the city, Lloyd ends up joining a party of adventurers during a dungeon raid against a Cyclops. He sets up a wide area magic circle to boost everyone's strength, and thanks to solid teamwork, they blind the monster, hold back its attacks, tie it up with magic, and finally bring it down. Back in the city, the whole group gets praised for the victory, but when it's time for rewards, Lloyd barely gets anything since he's stuck at D rank. Alan, the so-called team leader, throws shade and tells him that any white mage could have done what he did. Meanwhile, far from the city chaos, Merlin gets a surprise visit from a man named Will. He tells her that Lloyd has joined the hero's party. Merlin looks proud, but deep down, she's worried. She remembers how easy it is to lose control when you start getting recognition. Will brings up the time the Demon Lord went after a grimoire and wiped out half a city, and how Sybil used ancient magic to bring everyone back at the cost of her own life. Back in town, Alan's loving the attention. He's now known as one of the 4 heroes picked by Sacred Swords, and he's eating up the fame like free cake. One of his teammates quietly points out that his defense has been slipping lately, but Alan just laughs it off like he's untouchable. Not far from the kingdom's border, guards start turning up dead. A giant creature is on the loose, and Alan's squad gets sent to handle it. Lloyd uses his search magic to track the trail to a cave, and inside, a golem shows up. Alan cuts it down like it's no big deal, but then a demon mage steps in and summons another one. Lloyd notices the black staff the demon holds. It's got a magistone buried inside. He quickly tells Lulu, the team's archer, to take the shot. She drops the mage, but not before the guy seals Mia's staff, locking her magic. Lloyd tried to explain the shitty obvious, that without the magistone, the golem would be nothing but a wild mess, ready to smash everything in sight. But Alan, being the loud, reckless idiot he was, just ignored all that, barreled in like some wannabe hero from a cheap fantasy flick, and almost got flattened like a pancake. Lloyd barely pushed him out of the way in time to save his sorry ass. Then Alan swung his sword like he actually knew what he was doing and finished off the golem, acting like he'd been running the show all along. After the fight, instead of giving a simple thanks, Alan flipped the shoddy script, tossing all the blame on Lloyd. He said Lloyd just hid behind the group, letting Sheena do all the heavy healing, called him dead weight, and flat out kicked him off the team. Lloyd, quiet as usual, just admitted he wasn't strong enough yet. Alan laughed it off like it was a joke, shrugged like he couldn't be bothered, and told Lloyd to vanish. 3 days dragged by, and Lloyd tried joining other adventurer squads, but every single one gave him the cold shoulder. Most already had a white mage, and the rest just didn't want some weak-ass loser dragging them down. The frustration built up inside him like a volcano ready to blow. Then, at the guild, just as Lloyd was lost in his own head, some girl burst in like a shitty tornado, yelling for a white mage on the spot. The receptionist didn't even flinch and just pointed right at Lloyd. The girl's face lit up like she'd hit the jackpot. Then she grabbed his arm like he was the last limited edition spellbook on the shitty shelf, clutching him like her next-door waifu with those busty melons and thick thighs, like she was begging him to flash some magic and save the shitty day. The story rolls back to when Lloyd was strolling alone through the city, still salty from getting kicked off his crew by Alan. Alan called him out for being a weak-ass bitch who just hid behind others while Sheena, with her busty melons and thick thighs, did all the healing work. Lloyd knew he wasn't cut out for solo shit back then, so he swallowed his pride and took the hit without throwing a tantrum. Passing by a fountain, he spots a tiny statue of his master, and it hits him. She wasn't just talking bullshit when she said he wasn't ready to handle shit on his own. Now he gets it. Meanwhile, a badass crew preps for a mission. Their target's the wooden fortress of the Dirty Block, a gang that runs their turf tight. The pink-haired leader, rocking curves that make heads turn, looks calm, but knows this fight won't be a walk in the park. The gang's got numbers, street smarts, and runs their SHT with military precision. The adventurers are strong, but if they slip up, they'll get wrecked. On the mission, the team works like a well-oiled machine. The mage, probably with some killer thighs herself, gets cover when needed, the archers hitting every shot, and when the warrior almost gets stabbed in the back, the tank's huge shield blocks it like a boss. Meanwhile, the support mage in the back keeps buffing everyone like she's flexing those meaty thighs for extra power. Their teamwork tears the enemy apart like a hot knife through butter. The gang leader tries to bail but ends up trapped. Desperate, he summons a giant stone golem. The crew knows their usual tricks won't cut it, so the frontline warrior, strong as hell and rocking some serious muscle, charges and cracks the golem's head. She calls Clum for a power boost, and with that magic, she slices the golem in half like it's a piece of cake. After the fight, Clum, a bit flustered and under pressure from her busty badass sister Sylvie's illness, apologizes for spacing out and doubting if she belongs in such a fierce crew. The warrior tells her to chill. No one's judging. Everyone knows Clum's got a lot on her plate. Back at the guild, Lloyd tries to sign up but gets shot down by an archer, who probably knows the value of a good pair of milky thighs. Then the pink-haired leader, Yui, whose curves could stop traffic, storms in hunting for a white mage. The receptionist warns her finding one for an S-rank team is like finding a sober bartender on Saturday night. Yui's desperate though, spots Lloyd, and drags him out before he can run. She introduces her crew: Dagus the shield guy, Cross the archer, Silica the mage, and herself, Yui, the leader with killer legs and a sword that does damage. Lloyd tries to back out, but Cross wants to bail without Clum. Yui lays down the law. They gotta help the client. Lloyd's stunned hearing they're S-rank killers and pressured to show his magic. Nervous, he summons his staff out of thin air, dropping flashy magic circles under their feet. At first, no one feels it, but Cross suddenly feels lighter. Yui swings and chops a huge tree trunk with one clean hit, jaws dropping everywhere. Lloyd explains he accidentally stacked 5 spells at once: physical boost, defense, magic power, mana cost cut, and status resistance. He thinks he blew it, but the team pulls him back, realizing the dude's a freaking prodigy. Lloyd admits he was kicked out of a legendary foursome for being weak sauce. The crew tells him about Clum and her busty sister Sylvie, who's cursed with a disease turning her body into Magistone. Lloyd remembers his master warning him. Pure mana crystallizing inside is like a slow death. He asks to visit Clum's place. At Clum's crib, Lloyd meets her and offers to help Sylvie. In the sick room, he senses dark mana choking the poor girl, the Magistone spreading fast. He guesses she got sliced by pure Magistone in some mana-rich cave, and Clum confirms. Lloyd decides to suck the excess mana out using a reversed mana transfer spell while throwing in a low mana healing trick, multitasking like a boss. Clum explains to Yui how insane this is. Lloyd's juggling 2 magic types while his body's getting hammered by raw mana. Slowly, the stone fades off Sylvie's skin, and she starts looking human again. Lloyd finishes, wiped out and drained, while Sylvie wakes up crying tears of relief. Clum thanks Lloyd like he just saved her whole damn life, and promises to get back to adventuring once her sister's better. She tells Lloyd he's proven he's no scrub, but he stays humble, saying he's not quite ready to roll with them. That night, the S-rank crew throws a low-key party for Sylvie's comeback. Everyone's impressed by Lloyd's raw power, but he plays it cool, not soaking up the spotlight. Dagus asks what everyone would want if they could be reborn. Silica wants to get hitched, Yui wants to be a legendary hero with her crew, and suddenly Lloyd drops the bomb. He wants in. They all cheer, and Yui insists on throwing him a proper welcome bash, even though Lloyd tries to dodge the fuss. The others roast him hard, teasing him for hiding behind his staff like a scared little bitch, and the party kicks off. The team wasted 0 time throwing Lloyd a welcome bash. They hit up a local joint, and Lloyd was low-key touched by the feast his new crew laid out for him. This time, he wasn't playing humble or shy. He attacked the food like a dude who hadn't eaten in days, snagging every dish and even tossing out compliments like the place was a 5-star spot. The others looked at him sideways though, because honestly, this place was just your average dive. Lloyd explained that back when he was training under his master, meals were basic as hell, mostly garden herbs and wild mushrooms, with meat being some rare fancy-ass treat. The squad got curious about this master, so Lloyd spilled the tea. She was a straight-up badass mage, blowing things up left and right with wild experiments. But she also taught him some support magic since she was leagues ahead of him. Silica, with her smirk and those thick thighs, said she'd kill to learn from her, but Lloyd warned it'd be like signing up for a demolition job. Cross guessed she was strict as hell, but Lloyd said nah, she had a soft side under all that firepower and kindness. Then Yui, rocking those busty melons and looking like the hottest waifu next door, jumped in to say it was time for strategy. Before she could fumble the plan again, she tried to pass it off to Dagus, but he reminded her who was boss. Dagus laid out the mission: clear out monster packs terrorizing farms. The weird part was, all kinds of monster races were teaming up, which no one had seen before. Cross admitted he and Yui had their work cut out, especially with so many enemies. Yui said they'd lean on Silica's area magic, but Silica said she had to save her mana. Yui asked Lloyd if he could throw some offensive magic around. He said yeah, but his support magic was his real jam. Dagus broke down the roles. Him and Yui would be the flashy frontliners, Silica would blast from behind, Cross would cover the back, and Lloyd would heal and buff everyone. Silica, with those mommy milkers and a grin, was hyped to see Lloyd's magic in action, but Lloyd kept it real, saying not to expect miracles. Yui told him to have some damn confidence, but Lloyd reminded them how he got kicked out of the hero squad for being a weak ass. Cross said he'd rather have Lloyd than some stuck-up jerk, and everyone cracked up. After the tavern, Lloyd took off on his own. Dagus asked why, and Lloyd admitted he had no cash for a room. Dagus tossed him a pouch of coins like it was pocket change, telling him to earn it back. Lloyd promised, feeling the weight of their kindness. That night, in his room, he thought about how genuine the crew was, and swore to bust his ass for them. Next morning, everyone gathered outside Yui's place. She came out with a heavy backpack, looking like the hottest waifu who just forgot she was carrying the world's load and noticed no one else had bags. Cross explained Lloyd stored all their gear magically. Yui, looking like she was about to faint from relief, handed over her bag, and Lloyd stored it faster than you could blink. She was amazed and begged him to teach them the trick. Lloyd said anyone with mana could pick it up, and off they went. On the road, Dagus pointed to the mountains and warned beyond them was Demon Land. Quiet now, but ready to blow at any moment. They hit a shaky bridge, and Yui broke the tension with a dumb game, asking what they'd do with water in a tight spot. Everyone threw dumb answers, and Lloyd was just trying not to roll his eyes. Cross explained it was just to keep spirits up. Yui tossed another weird question about splitting spoils and forging new paths. Lloyd, feeling a bit cheeky, said he'd already walked a tough path. Not the best answer, but at least he joined in. Meanwhile, deep in some creepy forest, a hooded figure prayed before a black stone pulsing with bad vibes. Back with the team, they got to camp early thanks to storage magic. Yui wanted a bath, but Dagas said firewood and food first. Lloyd volunteered to get wood and found some magical fruit like his master used to grow. He tasted one and figured it was worth bringing back. Suddenly, a scream ripped through the air, and he ran toward the river. Yui and Silica were bathing when a massive basilisk slithered in, moving way too fast for comfort. It looked like they were done for until Lloyd threw a flashy spell to distract it, giving the girls time to scramble out. He tossed them their weapons and buffed them up quick. The basilisk lunged at him, but Yui, with a slice that made everyone's jaws drop, cut it in half. The beast thrashed, but Silica finished it off with a fireball hot enough to grill a whole feast. Yui thanked Lloyd for saving their asses. Then, as she asked him to store her sword, her towel slipped off, and she screamed like she just got caught flashing the whole tavern, her cheeks burning hotter than a forge. Later, the crew tried to learn storage magic. Yui, still with that red handprint on her cheek from the towel incident, avoided eye contact like a busted kid. Lloyd tried teaching, but they struggled. He apologized for being a shoddy teacher, but Dagus told him to chill. Silica finally nailed it, storing her staff like a pro, earning high fives all around. Cross tried, but only got half his gear stored, making everyone crack up. That night, Lloyd sat by the fire, and Yui, looking like the waifu who's just a little too close for comfort, joined him. She thanked him for joining the team and admitted she felt like she strong-armed him into it, but Lloyd said he needed the work anyway. She opened up about how the mission reminded her of her hometown, wiped out by monsters when she was a kid, and how she wanted to protect farms and villages now. Suddenly, Lloyd told her to wake the others. Giant spiders called Powerks swarmed in. The team hid, but Yui stepped on a twig, setting off alarms. 3 spiders surrounded them. They drew weapons and blocked sticky webs, but Silica's staff got stuck. Webs covered everything fast. Dagus asked what to do, and Lloyd said he'd freeze the spider's legs with magic. He cast several circles and told Yui to attack. Dagus blocked shots while Yui leapt over him, slicing webs and spider legs like she was trimming hedges. Cross freed Silica's staff, and Yui chopped off spider legs one by one. Silica roasted the last one with fireballs, and Cross's arrows exploded on impact. After the fight, Lloyd apologized for bossing everyone around, but Dagus said it was damn helpful. Yui said they'd be counting on Lloyd from now on, and everyone nodded. Next morning, they packed using storage magic again. As they left, Lloyd wondered why Powerks were roaming near the farms, but Yui just called him to hurry up, and he sprinted to catch up. At night, the crew set up camp, but Lloyd couldn't get the weird monster vibes out of his head. The whole damn pack was heading to the same spot like they had a secret meeting planned. Yui, rocking those busty melons and thick thighs like the ultimate next-door waifu, broke his train of thought, asking if he was pulling Night Watch solo again. Lloyd nodded, kind of begging her to flash him a smile or maybe something more, but she just rolled her eyes and warned him not to wreck his health. Still, Lloyd insisted this was his way to prove he wasn't just some loser nerd with no skills yet. Silica, the skinny mage with those mommy milkers barely contained by her robes, sighed and told him to speak up if it got too much. The next day, they kept moving, and Silica kept glancing at Lloyd like he was some hero in the making, but still a bit of a bitch when it came to confidence. He was tossing out detection spells to spot enemies nearby. Fancy for a guy who once got kicked from the hero squad for being weak. Lloyd played it down, saying the range was tiny, but he planned to keep using it to avoid surprise attacks. Yui teased him a bit, telling him to have more balls, but Lloyd just shrugged, too shy to fight back. That night, Yui asked Silica if Lloyd didn't trust the team. Silica said no, he just needed time. The poor guy's self-esteem was tanked hard. She figured he'd open up when ready. Later, Dagas, the bulky shield-bearer who looked like he could crush a mountain with his thighs, invited Lloyd for a walk while Cross took over watch. Dagas showed Lloyd the bells set in the forest to warn about monsters and told him he didn't have to stay awake all night like a desperate loser. Lloyd argued he didn't want to be a weak burden, haunted by the harsh words from his past. Dagas laid it out. Teams exist to share the load, and mistakes happen, but friends got your back. Lloyd, blushing like a total nerd, started warming up to the idea of leaning on others instead of playing the lone bitch. At dawn, Lloyd shyly asked busty, thick-thighed Yui to help fetch water. She agreed with a smirk, and the others watched with quiet smiles, probably enjoying how adorably awkward he was. Elsewhere, in some fancy mansion, a hooded servant reported to his master that the Mage stones were in place. Their plan worked. Most high-level adventurers were gone, leaving only low-level fighters and that nerdy hero squad. Lord Michel ordered the next phase to start. Back in the forest, Yui sensed something off. Cross pointed out they hadn't seen a single monster all day. Lloyd cranked up his detection spell and found a pack of monsters 10 miles ahead near a farm. When they got there, dire wolves circled the farm, but no other monsters were around. Cross spotted something in the field, but only he could see it. Lloyd boosted his vision and spotted a magic stone radiating dark energy. His master had warned him beastmen use rare magic to control monsters, and this stone was the puppet master behind the wolves' weird behavior. Lloyd detected over 1,000 monsters marching toward them. The stone must be pulling them in. Cross wanted to bail, but Yui said retreating would wreck the farms. Silica warned if the monsters followed, civilians would get hurt. Lloyd decided they had to fight, starting with destroying the stone. He told Cross to shoot it, and with Lloyd's magic boosting the arrow, it shattered. The wolves turned on each other, free from the stone's grip. But the massive horde was still coming. Lloyd waited for the right moment. When 3 wolves lunged at Silica, he boosted her magic, making her firestorm spell scorch harder than ever. She followed with a wind spell, spreading flames and thick smoke to blind flying monsters. Lloyd used telepathy to guide Cross, who took down airborne threats through the smoke. Things looked good, but Silica's mana tanked fast. Lloyd poured his own energy into her with a mana transfer, feeling totally drained himself. Silica then summoned heavy rain to douse the fire and soak the forest. Silica collapsed, but Dagas caught her like a pro. Yui praised Lloyd's moves, but he shrugged it off like a modest loser, even though everyone knew he was the real hero. The next wave was still coming, so Yui and Dagas stepped up while Lloyd and Silica rested, knowing the fight wasn't over yet. The scene kicked off with some poor chick getting grabbed by a sketchy dude. He clamped a hand over her mouth, dragging her off like some cheap snack. She looked frozen, pure terror in her eyes, like she just got caught stealing cookies from the cookie jar. Then another shady bastard showed up, face all shadowy and sketch, before Lloyd finally stepped in like the reluctant hero nobody asked for. Lloyd started talking about himself like some lost nerd trying to prove he's not a total loser. Said his name's Lloyd, and he's got some magic tricks up his sleeve. Dude trained his ass off with his master, some badass mage lady who probably had tits bigger than the town's busty barmaid and could blow shot up with her brain. After grinding through hell, Lloyd left home, bounced around a bunch of adventurer squads, got kicked from the first one for being a weak-ass bitch who hid behind everyone else, but then landed in a better crew. They crushed monsters, got blood on their boots, and now Lloyd was back in the game. After getting knocked out like a chump, Lloyd woke up, feeling that gnawing gut punch of danger. A damn monster army was coming, and they had to haul ass to the village. He downed a potion like a frat boy pounding beer and healed up quick. Then he dropped a sick-ass buff spell that turned his crew from zeros into absolute badasses, making them sprint like they'd seen a ghost, or a pair of mommy milkers flashing at him from the next-door waifu. They stopped for a quick breather, and Silica, the quiet one with those thick thighs that could crush a dude's skull, praised Lloyd for burning through mana like it was free drinks at the tavern. Lloyd played it cool but admitted he'd done this shot so many times. He was basically a walking mana furnace. Silica looked confused but didn't say shot. Then Lloyd spilled some past pain. His master ditched him in the wild, forcing him to crawl back alone, dodging monsters and praying his sorry ass didn't get eaten. He hid in caves, pushed his magic skills until his brain nearly fried, all while thinking about how much easier it'd be if he had a pair of busty melons to distract the monsters. Silica joked that sounded more like torture than training, and Lloyd cracked a nervous smile, promising he'd try harder not to be a useless Yui, their pink-haired sword-swinging boss lady, smirked to herself, thinking Lloyd was the kind of loser who begged his waifu to flash him just to feel alive. On the move again, Lloyd sensed something off, like a bad smell in a tavern filled with drunkards. The others slammed into him when he stopped dead. He sniffed out some demon summoners trying to pull a nasty trick underground. Yui took charge, telling everyone no lone wolf crap. This was a team thing, like a bunch of rowdy holding it down together. They busted through a wall thanks to Silica's magic blast, catching the weirdos before they could get their hellspawn going. One summoner tried to leg it with an elf girl wrapped up like some kind of magical Christmas present. Lloyd boosted the squad's speed like they'd been hitting the gym and caught the bastard with ease. Back at base, Lloyd worked some healing magic on the elf, Kureha, who looked like she'd been through hell but was fine now. Everyone was blown away by Lloyd's skills, even if the dude acted like he was still some nerd who just found his balls. Kureha had no clue how she got caught, but she was down to roll with the crew. Elsewhere, soldiers got ambushed by monsters and had to run for their sorry lives. Lloyd's gut said the village was next, and shot was about to get real. He split the team, deciding to stick with Kureha and hold off the beasts while the others bolted to warn the town. No one loved the idea, but everyone knew when to shut up and fight.